full moon tonight. A cool breeze sliding through the air in Lafayette, the kind that makes the streetlights flicker like they whispering secrets. This is the best time for me, just walking, letting the day fall off my shoulders. I drift through neighborhoods, then down toward the park, just to stand at the edge of the lake and let the water settle my mind. That's when I heard it, a scream, sharp enough to cut the night in half. I turned my head toward the sound, and what I saw standing by that lake made my heart stop cold. Hello, and welcome to my sinister dreams. If you enjoy this story, like, share, and subscribe, or the ghost in your house is gonna be real mad about it. My name is Lori, a widow, and drowning in the debt my husband left behind. I came to the lake tonight because I needed air, needed space, needed one moment where the world wasn't tea, crushing me from every side. I took 2 steps back from the water, trying to steady my breathing. That's when something moved. Not on the shore, not in the trees. On the water. The surface rippled, like something was gliding just beneath it, circling, waiting, and then it stopped, dead still. The moonlight hit the lake just right, and that's when I saw them. 2 red, hungry eyes floating inches above the surface, locked on me like I was the only warm thing left in the world. My throat tightened. My legs wanted to run, but my body wouldn't listen. Those eyes didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't even breathe. They just watched me like they already knew my name, like they'd been waiting for me to come here tonight. A cold voice slid across the water, soft enough to make me doubt I heard it at all. Lori, my heart dropped. Because whatever that thing was, it didn't just see me. It knew me.
It knew me, not just my name, my pain, my loneliness, my grief, every crack in my heart. It tasted it like a scent on the wind. Those red eyes pulsed, hungry, as if my sadness was the only thing keeping them alive. It called to me again, a whisper sliding across the lake like cold fingers brushing my cheek. My foot moved forward on its own, just 1 step, like something inside me was being tugged toward the water. But before I could take another, a hand clamped around my arm, strong, warm, human. "Ma'am," a man's voice said behind me, low and urgent. "Don't move." I didn't dare breathe. His grip tightened just enough to keep me from slipping toward the lake. "That thing," he whispered, "will take your life." The creature's eyes narrowed, as if annoyed someone interrupted its meal. The water around it began to churn slow at first, then faster, like something enormous was waking beneath the surface. The man pulled me 1 step back, then another. "Whatever you do," he said, "don't look away from it." I swallowed hard, my voice barely a breath. "Why? Why is it looking at me like that?" He didn't answer right away, his jaw clenched. His eyes stayed locked on the creature. Finally, he said, "Because it feeds on people who hurt. And tonight, ma'am, you're bleeding sadness." The creature hissed, a sound like steam escaping a cracked pipe. And then it started rising.
And then it started rising slow, towering, pulling itself up from the lake like a shadow peeling off the water. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My whole body locked up. Then, just as its shape began to form, it vanished. Gone, like it had never been there at all. The shock hit me so hard I screamed, my voice cracking through the trees. "Hey, hey!" the man shouted, grabbing my shoulders. "Calm down. It's gone. You're safe." But his eyes said something different. He looked at me the way a doctor looks at someone before giving bad news. "It marked you," he said quietly. "Whatever that thing is, it knows you now, and it will come for you." My stomach dropped. My knees almost buckled. "Why?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. He just let out a slow breath, like he was deciding how much truth I could handle. Finally, he said, "My name is Mark, and I've seen that thing before." The wind picked up, cold and sharp, rustling the reeds along the lake. Mark stepped between me and the water, keeping his voice low. "It doesn't hunt people at random. It hunts people who are hurting. People carrying grief so heavy it leaks out of them like light through cracks. He looked at Muriel, looked at me, and you, ma'am. You're shining like a beacon. My throat tightened. I didn't know whether to cry or run. Mark continued, voice steady but urgent. I can help you. But you need to listen to me. Because once that thing marks someone, it doesn't stop. Behind us, the lake rippled just once, as if something beneath the surface was smiling. The street lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on my eyes. Every rustle of leaves, every distant siren, sent a fresh jolt of adrenaline through me. My heart was still hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the unsettling quiet of the night. I glanced over at Mark. He was walking with a strange calmness, a stark contrast to my own frayed nerves. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, his gaze fixed on the cracked pavement ahead. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, until I couldn't stand it anymore. My voice came out as a ragged whisper. What was that thing, Mark? Back there, in the alley. It wasn't human. Mark didn't look at me. He just kept walking, his pace steady. No, he said, his voice low and even. It wasn't. He finally turned his head, his eyes catching the orange glow of a distant streetlight. They looked older, somehow. They're called echoes. Echoes. The words sounded absurd, too soft for the monstrosity we'd just escaped. The thing with too many joints and a smile that split its face. Echoes of what? Of strong emotions, he exclaimed, his voice taking on a professorial tone that felt bizarrely out of place. Regret, rage, despair. When someone feels something that powerful, right at the end. Sometimes it leaves a stain, a psychic residue. Most of the time, it just fades. But sometimes, it congeals. It takes a shape. I tried to process that. A shape made of feelings. So, that thing was someone's. Leftover anger. And pain, Mark added. It was feeding. They're drawn to places with a history of misery. Old hospitals, battlefields, prisons, that alley. It's been the site of a lot of bad things over the years. The echo latches on, and it feeds on the fear of anyone who stumbles into its territory. That's what you were feeling. It wasn't just your own fear. It was tasting it, amplifying it, feeding on it. A cold dread, separate from the initial shock, crept up my spine. The memory of its unnaturally wide grin flashed in my mind. It wasn't just trying to scare us. It was savoring it. So it's like a psychic vampire. In a way, Mark nodded. But they aren't intelligent. Not in the way we are. They're instinct. A recording on a loop, playing out the same violent impulse over and over. The one we saw was formed from a particularly nasty event decades ago. It just replays. The final moments pulling in anyone who gets too close to be part of the show. We turned a corner onto my street. The familiar sight of my house should have been comforting, but it wasn't. The whole world felt different now, thinner. As if you could peel back the corner and see the rot underneath. How do you know all this, Mark? How do you know about echoes? He stopped under the porch light of my house, his face half in shadow. He finally pulled his hands from his pockets, and for the first time, I noticed the intricate, faded scars that crisscrossed his knuckles. He gave a small, tired smile that didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say, he said softly, I've had to learn. Some families pass down recipes. Mine passes down rules for dealing with the things that linger in the dark. He clapped me on the shoulder. A gesture that was probably meant to be reassuring, but only made me feel the chilling depth of the world he'd just opened up to me. Get inside. Lock your doors. And try not to think about it too much. They're attracted to that, too. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the night, leaving me alone on my doorstep with the sudden, terrifying knowledge that the world was haunted, and my friend was one of the hunters. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking, feeling the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes on my back. The night was no longer empty. It was full of echoes. "Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching over me, Mark," Lori whispered to herself as she locked her front door behind her. For the first time in months, she felt a strange calm settle over her. Not happiness, not peace, just a moment where the world didn't feel like it was crushing her. But morning came, and with it came the same old routine. Bills on the table, final notices in the mail, a job that drained her dry, a house too quiet for a woman who used to laugh every day. By noon, the stress was back. By evening, the pain had returned. And by nightfall, the sadness had settled into her bones like cold rain. She sat on the edge of her bed, rubbing her temples, when she heard it. A voice, soft, wet, sliding through the walls like it was seeping into the house. "Lori," her breath caught. "No," she whispered. "Not here. Not now." But the voice came again, closer. This time, "Lori." She stood, heart pounding, and walked toward the living room window. The street outside was empty. Still, too still. Then she saw it. Standing in the glow of the street lamp, its shadow stretching across her yard like a stain. A creature shaped like a mutant alligator, but wrong. So wrong. Its body was scaled and slick, but its arms were too long. Its legs bent like a man's. And its face had human features, twisted into something hungry and ancient. Its red eyes locked onto hers. Lori screamed. The creature's jaw unhinged, stretching wider than anything should, and it took one slow step toward her house. The porch light flickered. The air grew cold, and Lori realized it hadn't just found her. It had come to claim her.
The creature was relentless. It wasn't running. It wasn't stumbling. It wasn't confused. It was hunting. And tonight, no matter the cost, it wanted Lori. Mark slammed his foot on the gas, the truck fishtailing as it tore down the street. The engine roared, a desperate howl against the oppressive silence of the night, tires screaming against the cold, hard pavement. "Hold on," he yelled, his voice cracking with strain, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. Lori clutched the passenger door handle. Her body braced for an impact that felt inevitable. Her heart was a frantic drum against her ribs, pounding so loud she could barely hear anything else. The world outside was a blur of dark houses and empty sidewalks. But she heard that, a guttural roar behind them, deep, wet, and furious like the creature was ripping the very fabric of the night open with its voice. It was a sound that didn't belong in this world, a sound of pure, primal hunger. Lori twisted in her seat, her muscles screaming in protest, just long enough to see it, and the sight stole the air from her lungs. The creature burst into the street from the shadows of an alleyway, its long, spindly limbs slapping the pavement with a sickening, wet sound. Its body twisted and contorted in ways no living thing should ever move. A horrifying ballet of unnatural angles and impossible speed. It was fast. Too fast. It didn't just run. It consumed the distance between them. It leapt onto a parked sedan, crushing the roof like a piece of paper, the sound of crunching metal echoing in the night. It used the ruined car as a springboard, launching itself forward again, closing the gap with terrifying ease. "Mark, it's gaining," Lori cried, her voice a thin, reedy thing. She could see it in the side mirror, a distorted nightmare growing larger and larger. "I know," he shouted, his own voice tight with the fear he was trying to suppress. "I know." He swerved hard around a corner, the tires protesting as he nearly clipped a rusty mailbox. The truck bounced violently, rattling over a deep pothole, but Mark wrestled it back under control barely. He was driving on instinct, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate need to protect her. Behind them, the creature skidded across the asphalt, its sharp claws sparking against the ground as it dug in for traction. The sound was like nails on a chalkboard, magnified 1,000 times. Then, with a fresh surge of fury, it lunged forward again. A strange thing was happening. Streetlights flickered and died as they passed beneath them, but each one went out completely the moment the creature ran under it, like the darkness itself was its ally, clearing a path for its pursuit. Lori's breath hitched in her throat. "It's not stopping," she whispered, the words barely audible. "It's not going to stop." The finality in her own voice scared her more than the creature itself. Mark gritted his teeth, his jaw set in a hard line. "That's why you need to hold on," he said, his voice low and fierce, a promise and a command. "Because I'm not letting that thing take you." He jerked the wheel again, a sudden, violent turn into a narrow side street, a desperate gamble. The walls of the brick buildings felt like they were closing in. The creature followed, but this time it didn't run on the street. It climbed. It scrambled up the side of a 3-story house, its claws digging into the wooden siding, splintering it with ease. And then it began racing across the rooftops, a shadowy phantom keeping perfect pace with the truck from above. Lori looked up through the windshield, her eyes wide with terror, and she screamed, a raw, piercing sound of pure horror. The creature's silhouette was framed against the faint glow of the moon. It leapt from roof to roof, a fluid, terrifying motion. Its red eyes glowed down at them like burning coal, its body coiled and ready to strike from its high vantage point. It was hurting them, playing with them. Mark saw it, too. He slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The engine screamed in protest, pushing the old truck to its absolute limit. Lori held on. The creature reached the edge of a flat-roofed building just ahead. It crouched, its long muscles tensing like powerful springs, and then it jumped, straight toward the truck, a dark, terrible shape silhouetted against the sky, falling upon them like a death sentence from above.
The creature slammed onto the hood of the truck with a force that shook the whole frame. Its claws dug into the metal, scraping deep grooves as it pulled itself closer to the windshield.
Lori screamed.
Mark didn't. He just gritted his teeth and yelled, "Hold on." He jerked the wheel hard to the right. The truck fishtailed, tires screeching across the pavement. The creature slid sideways, its claws tearing long, curling strips of metal from the hood. But it didn't fall. It roared a deep, wet, furious sound and lunged toward Lori's window. Mark cursed under his breath. "All right, you ugly swamp nightmare. Let's dance." He slammed the brakes. Hard. The truck lurched forward violently.
Lori flew against her seatbelt.
The creature wasn't so lucky. It shot forward, smashing into the windshield with a sickening thud, then rolled up and over the roof, claws scraping as it tried to hold on. Mark wasn't done. He threw the truck into a sharp left turn, tires screaming, engine roaring. The creature lost its grip. It flew off the roof, skidding across the pavement in a shower of sparks and scales. Mark didn't wait to see if it got up. He floored the gas. The truck shot down the road, leaving the creature shrinking in the rearview mirror.
Lori gasped for breath, shaking, tears streaking her face. Is it gone? Mark didn't answer right away.
His eyes stayed locked on the road, jaw tight, knuckles white on the wheel. Finally, he said, "No, but we bought ourselves a few minutes." He took a sharp turn onto a dirt road hidden between two old oak trees. "Where are we going?" Lori whispered. Mark exhaled slowly. "To the only place it can't follow." The truck bounced over the uneven ground, headlights cutting through the darkness. Lori swallowed hard. "The safe house," Mark said. "Hold on, just a little longer." Behind them, far in the distance, a roar echoed through the night. The creature was back on its feet, and it was coming. The truck rattled to a stop outside the safe house, the engine ticking as it cooled. Mark didn't move at first. He just sat there, staring into the dark woods like he expected the creature to step out at any second.
Lori's hands trembled in her lap. Her heart still hadn't slowed. "Mark, why me?" she whispered.
"Why is it after me?" He swallowed hard, then opened his door. "Come inside," he said. "I'll tell you everything." The cabin was small, dim and fortified, like someone had been preparing for war. Salt lines across the windows, iron nails hammered into the doorframe, strange symbols carved into the wood. Lori stood in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself. Mark lit a lantern, the warm glow softening the shadows. Then he finally spoke. "That creature, it hunts grief," he said quietly. "Not fear, not blood, not flesh. Grief." Lori's breath caught. "It feeds on people who've lost something so deep, it breaks them open. People whose sadness leaks out of them like light through cracks." He looked at her, really looked at her. "And Lori, your sadness is stronger than anything I've seen in years." Her throat tightened. She blinked hard, fighting tears.
"It's because of my husband," she whispered. "The debt, the loneliness. The way he left me with everything falling apart."
Mark nodded slowly. "That's why it wants you. Your grief is powerful."
Heavy. It's like a beacon to that thing. Lori sank onto a chair, shaking. "But why did it want you?" she asked.
Mark's jaw clenched. His eyes darkened with a pain he'd been carrying far too long. "Because I lost my daughter," he said. "My little girl. 5 years ago." Lori's breath hitched. "The night after her funeral, that creature came for me. It marked me. It hunted me. It still does." He stepped closer, voice low and steady.
"But when it saw you tonight, everything changed." Lori looked up, confused and terrified. "What do you mean?"
Mark exhaled, the truth heavy on his tongue. "It wants you more now, because your grief, your sadness, your loss, is stronger than mine." Outside, something growled in the trees, low, hungry, patient. The creature had found them again. And this time, it wasn't coming for Mark. It was coming for her. The safe house creaked as the wind pushed against the walls, but Mark knew better. That wasn't the wind. The creature was out there, circling, waiting. Lori sat at the table, her hands trembling, her eyes still red from fear and exhaustion. She didn't see the shadow sliding past the window. She didn't hear the low growl vibrating through the floorboards, but Mark did. He felt it in his bones. He'd lived with that sound for 5 long years. And now, looking at Lori, broken, grieving, marked, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Fear, not for himself, for her, 'cause he knew the truth. If he didn't do something soon, if he didn't break the creature's hold on her, if he didn't act tonight, Lori would be its next victim. Then, once it fed on her grief, once it drained her dry, it would come for him again. It always came back. Mark stepped away from the window, jaw tight, heart pounding. "Lori," he said, voice low and urgent, "we don't have much time." She looked up, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" Mark grabbed the lantern and the iron blade from the table. "That thing isn't just hunting you," he said. "It's starving for you. Your grief is stronger than mine. Stronger than anyone's I've seen. He swallowed hard, and if it takes you, it'll be stronger than ever. Strong enough to finish what it started with me. Laurie's breath caught. You mean, it'll kill me? And then yes, Mark said. It'll come for me next. The creature growled outside. Louder this time, closer, like it understood every word. Mark turned toward the door, determination burning in his eyes. That's why we're ending this tonight. Before it ends you, he handed Laurie the lantern. Stay close. Don't look back, and whatever you hear, don't listen to it. Laurie stood, fear shaking her legs, but she didn't back down. Let's go, she whispered. Mark nodded once. Then he opened the door. The creature's red eyes glowed in the darkness, and the night swallowed them whole. The creature's eyes burned red, in the darkness, not glowing. Not shining, but burning, like hot coals pulled straight from the heart of something ancient and starving. It watched them from the tree line, a hidden, silent predator, its hunger pulsing through the woods like a terrifying heartbeat. Laurie felt it before she saw anything. A cold, heavy pressure settled on her chest, a suffocating weight. A whisper, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, brushed the back of her mind. Laurie, a violent shiver, racked her body. Mark tightened his grip on the old brass lantern and stepped closer, shielding her slightly with his body. Don't look at it, he said, his voice a soft, urgent command. Not yet. It pushed deeper into the suffocating woods. The path, a faint, silver ribbon, barely visible under the weak moonlight. The trees grew thicker here, older, their gnarled branches twisting like arthritic arms reaching for a sky they could no longer see. Mark kept his voice low, his tone almost reverent, as if speaking in a sacred, haunted place. The Yanaband of Choctaw. They knew about this thing long before Lafayette was even a thought. Long before any of our towns were built. They had a name for it. They called it Issy Hollow, the hollow beast. Laurie swallowed hard, her throat feeling like sandpaper. What? What does that mean? Mark carefully stepped over a massive fallen log, its bark slick with moss, then reached back to help her across. It means it's not alive, the way we understand life, he explained, his eyes scanning the oppressive darkness around them. And it's not dead either. It's hollow, empty. It's a void that fills itself with the grief of others, the sorrow of the living. A sharp crack echoed from the trees directly behind them, branch snapping under an impossible weight. Laurie spun around, her heart leaping into her throat, but Mark's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, his grip like iron. Don't, he whispered, his voice strained. That's what it wants. It wants you to look. It wants you to feed it your fear. They kept moving, the forest growing darker with every step, the air turning frigid, biting at their exposed skin. Mark suddenly pointed ahead, to a strange clearing where a cluster of ancient cypress trees had twisted themselves together, their trunks and roots forming a near-perfect, living circle. That's the place, he said, a hint of hope in his voice. The Choctaw legends say this clearing, this circle, can cleanse the mark. It can sever its connection to you. But there's a price. It only works if you face the source of your sorrow, the thing that broke you and drew the beast to you in the first place. Laurie's breath hitched, a painful, ragged sound in the dead quiet of the woods. My husband, she whispered, the words tasting like ash. The crushing debt he left her with. The profound, echoing loneliness. The feeling of abandonment, of being left to drown in the wreckage of their life. Mark nodded, his expression grim. That's why it's fixated on you, Laurie, more than me. Your grief is fresh. It's heavy. To a thing like that, your pain is a feast. A low, guttural growl rolled through the trees. No longer a distant threat, but a tangible vibration that shook the very ground beneath their feet. It was closer now. Much closer. Laurie's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure terror. "Mark, it's coming." He moved to stand in front of her, raising the lantern high. Its flickering light cast long, dancing shadows that made the woods seem alive and menacing. "I know," he said, his voice steady despite the obvious danger. "That's why we have to make it to the circle now. If we don't," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to, because at that exact moment, the creature stepped out from behind a thicket of tangled vines and into the faint moonlight. Its piercing red eyes locked onto Laurie, devoid of anything but a ravenous, unending hunger. Its jaws, lined with needle-sharp teeth, dripped a foul-smelling saliva. Its body was a nightmarish fusion, something hideously twisted between alligator and man. And a palpable aura of pure hunger radiated from it like heat from a furnace. Mark's final words were a desperate, raw whisper. "Run. Run to the circle. If you don't make it, it takes you." Laurie didn't hesitate for a second. She ran, and the creature followed. Laurie stumbled into the sacred clearing, breath ragged, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break through her ribs. The ancient cypress trees formed a perfect circle around her, their roots twisting like old hands gripping the earth. The air inside the clearing felt different, thicker, heavier, humming with something older than language. Mark rushed in behind her, placing himself between Laurie and the darkness beyond the trees. His stance was protective, desperate, like he'd die before letting that creature touch her. The woods went silent. Then a scream tore through the night. Not human, not animal. Something hollow, ancient, starving. Laurier, Issy Hollow, stepped out from between the trees, its red eyes blazing with hunger. Its body twisted, scaled, and wrong, part alligator, part man, part nightmare. It crouched low, muscles coiling, preparing to strike. Laurie's knees buckled. Her grief surged up like a wave. The debt, the loneliness, the empty bed. The broken promises, the crushing weight of being left behind. Issy Hollow smelled it. It roared, jaws unhinging, claws, digging into the earth as it lunged, and then a bright light exploded in the center of the clearing. Not fire, not lightning, something purer. A white, gold radiance burst upward from the ground, swirling around Laurie like a shield. The trees shook. The air vibrated. The creature recoiled, shrieking as the light burned its shadowed skin. Mark shielded his eyes. "Laurie, don't move," he shouted. "That's it. That's the cleansing." Laurie stood frozen in the center of the light, tears streaming down her face as memories flooded her. Her husband's smile, his broken promises. The nights she cried alone. The weight she carried after he was gone. The light pulsed brighter with every memory she released. Issy Hollow screamed again, stumbling backward, its red eyes dimming as the light stripped away its hold on her. Mark stepped closer, voice trembling with awe. "Laurie, it's working. You're breaking the mark." The creature clawed at the ground, desperate, furious, terrified. "Lukey, but the light only grew stronger. It wrapped around Laurie like a warm embrace, not taking her grief away, but transforming it. For the first time since her husband died. She felt the weight lift. Just a little, just enough. Issy Hollow shrieked, its body flickering like smoke in the wind. The cleansing had begun, and the creature was losing her. The bright light around Laurie swelled, rising like a pillar of white gold fire. It wrapped her in warmth, in memory, in release. Her grief poured out of her, not erased, not forgotten, but transformed. Issy Hollow screamed, its voice cracking the air like thunder. Laurier, it lunged again, claws tearing into the earth, but the light burned hotter, brighter, forcing it back. Mark staggered toward her, shielding his eyes, but the light didn't push him away. It pulled him in. A second glow rose beneath his feet, softer, trembling, but real. Mark gasped as the warmth spread through him, filling the hollow place he'd carried for 5 long years. "Mark," Lori whispered through the light. He dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I see her," he choked out. "My little girl. I see her." The light wrapped around him, lifting the weight he'd buried so deep it had become part of his bones. Isahalo shrieked, stumbling backward, its red eyes dimming as the grief it fed on slipped from its grasp. It clawed at the air, desperate, starving. Knew the pain, the sadness, giveth back. But the clearing had chosen. Lori's release completed the ritual. Mark's grief joined hers, rising like smoke into the night sky. The light surged outward in a blinding wave. It struck Isahalo square in the chest. The creature screamed a sound of pure agony, pure hunger, pure emptiness, as the light burned through its hollow body. Its scales cracked, its shadow peeled away. Its form flickered like dying embers. "Lori," it rasped, voice breaking apart. "Don't leave me. Hungry." The light flared one final time. Isaholo exploded into a burst of ash and shadow, torn apart by the very grief it once devoured. The clearing fell silent. The light faded slowly, gently, like a candle burning down. Lori collapsed to her knees, breath shaking, tears falling, but lighter than she had felt in years. Mark knelt beside her, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder. "It's gone," he whispered. "You broke it. We broke it." The night air felt warm again. The trees stood still. The darkness no longer watched them. For the first time since their losses, they were free. The clearing slowly dimmed, the last threads of white gold light drifting upward, like fireflies returning to the sky. The air felt warm again, alive again. I knelt in the grass, breathing hard, tears drying on my cheeks. But for the first time since my husband died, I didn't feel crushed. I felt lighter, not healed. Not whole, but no longer drowning. Mark stood beside me, one hand braced on a tree, his chest rising and falling as he tried to steady himself. His face was wet with tears he hadn't let himself shed in 5 years. He looked at Mirieli Luktan for a moment. Neither of us spoke. The woods were silent, peaceful, safe. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. "Mark, did you see her?" I whispered. He nodded, his voice thick. "My little girl. She wasn't hurting anymore. She wasn't scared. She just smiled at me." My heart softened. "I'm glad," I said quietly. "You deserved that." Mark let out a shaky breath, half laugh, half sob. "And you?" he asked gently. "What did you see?" I looked down at my hands, then up at the sky. "My husband," I said. "But not the debt, not the pain, not the loneliness. Just him, the man I loved before everything fell apart." I exhaled, long and slow, and I let him go. Mark stepped closer, offering his hand. I took it. We stood together in the center of the ancient clearing, hands clasped between us. The moonlight cast long shadows, but their faces were soft, etched with a quiet, fragile hope. They were two people who had been hunted, broken, hollowed out by grief, and somehow, against all odds, had survived. The night breeze rustled the cypress leaves overhead. "It's over," Mark said softly. "You're free now." I squeezed his hand. "So are you." We walked out of the clearing side by side, the moonlight guiding our path. Behind us, the woods felt different, lighter, calmer, no longer watching. Icy Hollow was gone, banished, its hunger silenced. And for the first time in a long time, Mark and I weren't alone in our grief. We were walking forward, together.